Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back. You are listening to the radio show that is Refined Greatness. Sure, there are other shows on the radio dial, but this show is like pure gold. Those other shows are the slag you skim off the top there. And after you do that, this is what's left. Pure 99.999%, the gold standard of radio shows. No, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you the truth. Something you've expected to come from this show. The absolute truth, whether you want to admit it or not. Many do not. I was watching this week all this fiscal cliff wrangling in Washington. A cliff which we, by the way, went over a while back. I've covered that on a previous show. If you'd like to listen to it, you can go to our archive shows there on YouTube at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. All this political theater that's been happening, it would be sad were it not so maddening. Just ask Tory. He's just bowling over here.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, it would be funny if it weren't screwing over our country and the middle class of this country. You do realize most of the money raised through taxes is from the middle class, right? Raising taxes on the rich, it isn't going to solve the problem. We don't have a tax problem. We have a spending problem. Yeah, but those rich have to pay their fair share. Is being 10% of the population but paying over 70% of the taxes fair? Most of those people will never be using government services, yet they're having to pay for them, so you don't have to. That's fair? If I go to a restaurant, I order a bunch of food, waste probably half of it by not eating it, and then stick you with the check. Is that fair? Let's say you work in an office. Someone in the office is going to go pick up lunch and is taking orders in the break room. Is it fair for you to demand whoever makes the most money pay for your lunch in addition to theirs? Is it fair for you to demand they pay for part of your lunch? Is it fair to demand they pay for any part of the cost of your lunch? No? Then why is it fair to demand the supposed rich in this country pay for your government handouts? A tax based on a percentage of your earnings is not the definition of fairness, despite what the liberals, some conservatives, and the government will tell you. When you buy a loaf of bread, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or a person making $20,000 a year. You pay the same dollar amount. Tory's raising his hand.
I'm the latter.
That would be the millionaire part, right? Yeah. But that's a fair tax. You're paying the same dollar amount. Telling someone they have to pay more simply because their income is higher, that's not fair. But in order to play the class warfare that is necessary to screw over the middle class, and that's what everyone in government is doing, lest you find yourself believing the hype out of Washington, in order to placate those people who aren't smart enough to know what these guys in government are up to, Congress acts like they're sticking it to those rich people. And anyway, yeah, that'll make your situation better, right? Congress and just about all governments in this country, from local up there to the federal, they're spending more than they take in. And to pay for it all, the Treasury is printing more and more dollars to cover that spending. The effect of all this spending in normal times is inflation. But the Fed has been acting to keep down inflation, but it cannot continue to do so forever. It just won't work. So what happens in the end will be this normal cycle of inflation. It will happen. There's no doubt about it. Why do you think we talk about $100 in, quote, today's dollars? It's because your $100 isn't really worth $100. It may be only worth, say, $80 now. But years ago, it might have been worth closer to $95. So if something is going down in value, what does that tell you about it? Do you want to put your money into something going down in value? Would you buy a stock that has been dropping consistently over the years? Of course not. But if the government is continually driving down the value of the money in your pocket, isn't that the same as a tax? You have less money than you did a year ago. Whether you give it to the government or it makes your dollars worth less, the effect is the same. You cannot buy as much as you could years ago. Let me put it this way. If you went to a doctor for an operation and he purposely screwed up the procedure on purpose, you could sue him or her. Like if he didn't do it on purpose, you can still sue him. But you definitely would not go back to them to have whatever they screwed up fixed. But when Congress purposely screws up our economy...
Can we sue them?
Yes. They screw over the citizens of this country. Well, you wish you could sue them, but you can't. But you certainly shouldn't vote them back into office. I mean, here they come. Hi, I'm the guy who screwed this up. I'm the doctor who botched your operation and did it on purpose, knowing full well what I was doing. Aren't you going to give me another chance to screw up the procedure again? Come on, you didn't die the first time.
You love me.
Yeah, you might not die this time. Just give me that one more chance. It sounds insane when we're talking about a medical procedure on your body. But the same thing is happening to our country. We continue to vote the same clowns in over and over. It is like we're all a bunch of masochists. It is so funny to listen to these...
Oh, it feels so good.
Yeah, it feels so good. Nothing like getting the pimp hand from our own employees in Congress. I love paying more taxes. I love it when you overspend. I love it when you constantly screw me and my fellow Americans. It's so funny to listen to these conservative commentators and pundits on television and radio talk about how they don't get why the Republicans allow themselves to be bullied in Congress, why they capitulate and sign on to bad legislation, why they give in to the president. It's pretty simple. It's because they believe in it. Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter. They all believe in governmental control of as much of this country as possible. Sure, they talk a good game, but when it comes to voting, it is always the same thing. More taxes, more spending, but no cuts. You can tell me you believe in lower taxes and limited government over and over, but when your actions, your votes don't reflect that, then at some point I have to stop believing what you're saying. Either that or I become an ignorant robot blindly voting the way my particular party says to and actively contributing to the decline of this country. I don't know how much more evidence you want that the Republicans believe in what the Democrats are doing. They all believe the same thing. They vote practically the same. Oh, they'll oppose something here or there, but the overall trend is towards more government, less individual freedom, more taxes, more spending. Good Lord, how dense do you have to be not to be able to see that? If someone is robbing you, and that is what Congress is doing when they continue to spend money we don't have. Not only are they robbing you, though, they're robbing your children and your grandchildren and then their grandchildren until the government either runs out of money, that is, it devalues the money to practically nothing, or stops spending what they don't have and works through all this debt. And if someone is robbing you, you don't negotiate with them to try and convince them to steal less from you. You take a stand and say, no, you aren't going to steal at all. It's wrong. Even more so, it's illegal. You don't negotiate when someone is doing something harmful to you. Let's see, only stab me 4 times instead of 6. Only shoot me once instead of twice. That's just insanity. We're negotiating with the criminals when we should be locking them up, or at least demanding that they act correctly and not irresponsibly. If you're against all this, if you're upset with how Congress is acting, if you don't agree with this excessive spending, if you're tired of seeing the debt ceiling raised over and over, or heck, the president even wants to do away with the debt ceiling. He wants the government to be able to spend as much as it wants whenever it wants. if all this is bothering you, then I have bad news. You don't have a voice in Washington. If you're against these insane wars, if you're against all this taxation, if you're against the crazy drug war, if you're against the intrusive role of government, and I would include local, state with the federal, if you're against the role those governments have taken in society, then you're out of luck when it comes to representation in Washington, or just about any government for that matter. This is where, personally, I think your best bet is to start backing the Libertarian Party, a party that is fighting to remove government from all of this. I don't believe what the two major parties have been telling everyone, that voting for a third-party candidate is throwing away your vote. It isn't. Besides, if we get enough people who are frustrated with Washington to vote our way, then we won't be dealing with the major parties too much longer. Real quick before we go to the break here, I'll tell you, I used to be a diehard Republican. I grew up with Ronald Reagan. I was there cheering on the intervention of our government in the affairs of other countries, in the CIA orchestrating the overthrowing of third world leaders, in the constant meddling and minding everyone else's business. Then one day, I began to realize that if government didn't respect other people's rights and liberties, what made me think it would continue to respect mine. And instead of listening to what the Republican Party said, I started watching what it was doing, how it was voting. That's when I realized it was up to the same old things the Democrats were doing. Only the Republicans were about a decade behind. Recently, however, I've noticed the Republicans have been playing catch-up, and now they're about equal in their lust for more power over the American people. Anyway, we're up on the break here at the half hour on the Patrick Riggins Show. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions and a couple other things. We'll get to. We might ask Tori what his New Year's resolutions are. One of them involves staying out of handcuffs, I think.
No, that's just a daily struggle.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Oh, see, I was going to go somewhere with, that was happening at home or.
No. Actually, I don't make New Year's resolutions. That's my resolution is to never make one.
Yeah,
I've been good so far.
This is Patrick Riggins. We'll be back in a minute.